through and telling people different things that they're seeing and all that sort of thing. But then they also help us for so many things. From next week we have the Don and Lillian Stokes private birding tour, all of which goes to support the refuge. They don't charge us anything. And it's their time, and they're being asked all the time to do things, but they do that for us. And that filled up, of course, very similar to this, where everybody's in line. We didn't even have to advertise it, I don't think. And people know that we've done that. But they've done that for many, many years. And anytime we ask them to do something, sure, what do you need? So thank you for that. Because they don't have to do that, so we appreciate it. They are known as America's first family of birding. They have been the most trusted authorities and educators of birding information for more than 30 years. They're highly recognized team of best-selling birding authors and leading television personalities. They've published more than 4.5 million copies, so many millions. Nearly 5 of their colorful, user-friendly bird guides. And I see many of you holding those bird guides here, and I've seen a few purchases. For those of you who are interested, they will be here signing their books afterward. They've been giving seminars, speaking events, book signings, and environmental events all over the United States. Whether you're a novice or experienced birder, their cutting-edge, detailed field guides will take your birding to the next level. So please join me in welcoming Don and Lillian Stokes.
Thank you very much. Are we on, or did you?
Yeah. As long as it's green. Yeah, just
okay, can you hear me back there?
Yeah, just stand right in.
I have all the lights out.
And right in the microphone.
And we'll take all the lights out, yeah, back.
Everything. We want to see the images really well.
Yeah, no, take them out.
Oh,
Turn off all the lights.
Yeah.
All the way off.
That looks good. There we go.
It's hard to do.
We're very glad to be here, and it was such a very quiet line out there. I don't know.
Very
well
well
behaved. You're very well behaved. Maybe too well behaved. We'll see if we can change that up a little bit. You know, if Lily and I were introducing our old TV show, we would say, "Hello, I'm Don."
And I'm Lillian
Stokes. That's where we always began the show. And we're just very glad to be here. It's great, and I'm glad to start early because everybody doesn't have to wait an hour. And so let's get started.
Okay, so today our talk is, can everybody hear me fine? Today our talk is called Better Birding. By the time you leave here, we're going to make you all better birders. There are 4 parts, we think, to be a better birder, and one is to be better at bird identification. The next is to be better at understanding bird behavior. The next is to learn how better to attract birds. And the 4th is caring and sharing, being better at caring and sharing about birds. This is our first image. And by the way, I'm the photographer part of the Stokes team. I took all the bird images you will see today. You know, Don and I have been doing this actually for 35 years, which is really quite amazing when I think about it. And as Bergie said, we've accomplished a great deal. We have done a PBS TV show that was seen by 40 million viewers. This was in the 2000s. It's not on TV anymore. It was about 1999 to 2004. We were also on the DIY channel, and we were real groundbreakers. We were innovators. We were the first people to have a national TV show on birding and bird watching. I remember when we started the show, times have changed. One of the comments we got, "Really? You're going to be on TV? But you're so normal looking." People really said that. Old Jane Hathaway dies hard, huh? And we authored over 35 books in 35 years, sold over 5 million copies. And the books are for sale today in the Refuge, stocks a lot of our books. We have this, and the Shorebird book is very popular, and the Beginner's Guide to Birds. These are just some of the many books that we've authored. Everything from the backyard goldfinches to rarities are covered in our book, such as this black-tailed gull. That's a very fancy bird. And so the way this lecture is going to work is we're going to talk, and at the end of our talking, if you have questions, come ask us them at the book signing. The book signing will be in the next room. Bring your books. Some of the books that are for sale in the Refuge are already signed but not personalized, so we'll personalize them if you want. And some are not signed at all. So get your books, buy them, and then get in line and talk to us, and we will sign them. Okay, number 1, up at back, is my
So everybody wants to be a better birder, and one of the best ways to do that is to do bird identification and get better at it. So today we're going to try to help you give some ideas about how to get better at bird identification. Sometimes this is not unusual for us to get something in an email or a letter that says, "Hi Don and Lillian, I saw this bird, it has black wings, what is it?" Well, this is what we call a one-clue birder. They found one clue, and they're sticking with it to the end. Even though there may be better clues, they don't really know. But so they're sticking with it, and they said, "I'm not." Of course, if you only have, so we're going to try to add clues for you in your birding, so that you're not just a one-clue birder. And of course, if you're a birder with no clues, you're clueless. Okay, so there are 3 different things. Let's see, I get the link. Shape, color, and size. And there's an easy way to remember this. Remember the old rock and roll song that was shake, rattle, and roll? Okay, so it's shape, color, and size, oh birdie, shape, come on, color and size, shape, color, and size, oh birdie, shape, color, and size. Hey, pretty good. Once again. I was going to do the twist with it, but I don't know if I can get my parts moving that way anymore. So, okay, so we're going to go over those things. And of all the clues that you do, shape, the first one, is the one that is the most important. It trumps all other clues. It's the most consistent aspect of a bird. When you think about it, color can change in a lot of different ways. It depends on the gender of the bird, male and female. It could be the season, fall or winter or spring. It could be the wear on the bird, or it could be the age of the bird. So all of those things change in color. So if you have to remember color clues, you're going to have to remember a lot of clues. If you remember shape clues, you can do it with less. So shape is the key. And size, of course, as we've talked about, is actually one of the more difficult things to ascertain in birds when you look at them. When we look at shape, we got this loom to help us out, Union rates. It's birds carry, when we look at shape in a particular way. We try to quantify it, rather than just say, well, it looks kind of like pot-bellied, or it's kind of, it's like a football, or it's like a hammer upside down, or something like that. We try to say, okay, let's take certain parts of a bird, measure them, such as the length of the bill, and then to the length of the head. What's the proportion? And look for proportions that help us see what's distinctive about this bird. This can be done with an individual bird, not comparing it with any other species, and that's another advantage to it. Okay, here, we have taught a lot of you about shape over the years, and that was shape 101. This is shape 201. Okay, this is a little more complicated, but I'm going to show you some more subtleties about shape. These are 2 birds, pictures that were taken, Lillian took on the Sanibel beaches here. And these are young gulls. Gulls in their first year look brown. Both these gulls take 4 years to mature, and this is their first year. So you can see, if you went to look at color, this might be a difficult problem, because their colors look very similar, although there are some differences. This is checkered black and white. This is obviously a little more sort of muted. But that's after that. The head on this is a little darker. This head is white. But let's just look at some of the things that you could look at in this. And actually some of these, the arrows have gotten a little mixed up here, so what I'm going to show you. Look at the shape of the heads. Anybody, do you see any difference in those 2 heads, and how would you describe it? Anybody, anything? Well, look at this head over here. It's like an egg. If you put an egg on its side, it's really ovoid, like that. This head over here, you can make a circle right around the head. See the differences in those? They're really very different. Look at the size of the head in relation to the body. This head looks small compared to this head and this body. Look at the shape of the bill. This bill is thick and it's sort of bulbous at the tip. This one's thinner and much straighter. If you look at the distance from the legs to the chest and from the legs to the tail, this one has more sticking out its back than it does out the front. This one has less sticking out the back than the front. If you look at these feathers here, these are the primary feathers. These are flight feathers. These stick out past the tertials, and Lillian will tell you more about that later. Just a little bit. These stick out a lot. The overall result is that this bird is a more streamlined, thinner, slimmer looking, smaller headed, thinner billed bird in a great many ways. And all of those clues to shape add up and point to that. You can also look at the belly. Look, the deepest part of the belly here is in front of the legs. Here it is behind the legs. Again, adding to the sort of short, stout look. But if we just said it's a very stout bird or a very sleek bird, that doesn't help us as much as actually looking for quantitative shape. The other way of describing it, we call qualitative shape. It's the quality, and that's not as useful as the quantity. Okay, shorebirds. When you're identifying shorebirds, the first three things you do is take 3 deep breaths. So we're going to do that together. Ready? 1. 2. Nobody hyperventilate here. 3. Okay, good. Now you feel a little better? No? Okay. Let's go to shorebirds. 3 of the shorebirds we call the big 3 are the most common shorebirds in Sanibel and the most common shorebirds in Ding Darling. We'll talk mostly about Ding Darling here today, about shorebirds. And they are the willet, the short-billed dowager, and the Donlan. They make up 90% of the birds you see out there. So when you go out, after you take your first 3 deep breaths, remember, there are only about 3 birds that are actually going to be out there that are the most common. So let's go over each of them. If we do shape, color, and size, like we talked about in the rock and roll song, we've got a bird that looks like, first of all, it's big. It's 12 to 14 inches. It's our tallest shorebird in most cases that you're going to ever see out there, unless a marble godwit comes over. So this is the tallest of the shorebirds. If you look at the legs, they are actually very long. If you compare the legs, this is a measurement you can do. Compare the length of the legs to the depth of the body above. The legs are a lot longer than the body above. Do you see that? You see that? Okay, that's a really interesting thing. It has gray legs, so color can help. Size we know about. Of course, one of the best things about this bird is that when it flies, it opens those wings. You see this incredible black and white pattern that you would never have guessed by looking at the regular bird. This really helps you out. Here's a short-billed dowager. This is a medium-sized bird. Look how much shorter the legs are here in relation to the body. They're actually shorter than the depth of the body above. They come up to about there. Its bill is twice the length of its head. That's a very good clue. There's no other bird out there will have that kind of dimension. And its legs are yellow, not gray. So we've got a color clue here. We've got a size and head shape clue. It also has a lot of markings all over it. You can see it's sort of dark bib here and a lot of markings under the tail along the side. This is the third of the birds. This is a very common bird, a shorebird out in Ding Darling. And this is the Donlan. It's one of the small shorebirds. It's 8.5 inches. Its bill is 1.5 times the length of the head, and it droops. Donlan for down curve D for down curve D for Donlan. So it has a distinctive bill. All 3 of these have very distinctive bills, and they all have very distinctive leg colors. So they shouldn't be that hard. These are like 2 good clues, 2 or 3 goods. A couple of shape clues and a color clue. Black legs. So we had black legs, we had yellow legs on the dowager, and we had gray legs on the willet. So it's not as bad as you think, really. Maybe only 2 deep breaths. So here's another example of what you might see. And when Lily and I look at a group of birds like this, sometimes what we try to do is get one bird we really know what it is, and we call it the marker bird, and compare the birds to that to get a sense of size. And that's especially good if you're going to be in some new place. We do this with shorebirds wherever we go, because you go to a new spot and you see these birds, and the environment and the sense of scale are all different, and it's very hard to tell one from the other. Here we have the willet right in here. That's our marker bird. These are Donlans. You can see the down-turned bills. So we can use the willet as our marker bird, and with that we can say, oh, this is the smallest, but here's a bird that's sort of middle-sized, and that's the long-billed dowager. Look at the long bill and the small head. So that's the way we do that. Now, there are a couple of birds that people misidentify and have trouble telling apart out here. And these, we're going to show you 3 sets of shorebirds that people commonly mistake for one or for another bird. Right here we have the Donlan and we have the Western Sandpiper. The Western Sandpiper is not a common sandpiper in Ding Darling. If you're lucky if you see 4 or 5 at one spot, could possibly be more, but often there are none. So a lot of people come into Ding Darling who haven't birded here before and say, oh, I had 25 Western Sandpipers, I'm sure. Well, many of the times they're mistaking it for a Donlan. What are the differences here? Anybody see the beak? Okay, the beak is very different. Very good. Look, this is downturned slightly. You do see that, right? It's downturned, but it's shorter than the length of the head. What else?
Throat.
What's that? The throat is very different. This bird is extremely white. Extremely white. And look at this one. A huge dark bib and a dark head. It's very different. They both have black legs. That doesn't help much. They both are pretty white on the side. But the extensive white here, this is a lot smaller too. You can see this is 8.5. This is 6.5. This bird has to be quite small in relation to that. And just to show that, here are some Donlans and Western Sandpipers at Ding Darling. So here's the Donlan. This is a good one to do because we can look and say, oh, I'm pretty sure that's a Donlan. Take a bird that you can get and then wonder about the others. This bird here is smaller and whiter. This bird's smaller and whiter. These are Westerns. Look at the length of the bill in terms of the length of the head and the length of the bill in terms of the length of the head there. So you can see that. This is probably another Donlan. And then here is probably another Western. So we have quite a few Westerns here. Up here we happen to have some black-bellied plovers, which are larger birds, and that's a good marker bird too if you get to know that bird. So here's another mistake people make. They take 2 small sandpipers and they mistake them, one for the other. This is the least sandpiper. It's the smallest sandpiper in the world. And it's our smallest sandpiper, of course, because we're in the world also. And it has yellow legs. What a wonderful thing. It's our only small sandpiper with yellow legs. It's such a help. Of course, if it's walking around in mud, they don't look very yellow. So basically you say they're not black. They might look a little paler or something like that. And then over here is the Western. Look at the differences in size. What do you see? Anything? Can you see a difference in shape?
Pointed tail.
Yeah, this one looks a little sleeker, the least sandpiper. Why is that? It looks like it's because the distance from here to here is thinner than on this. This is a little more deep-chested. The head and bill, the head at least, is much smaller in relation to the body than the Western is. Do you see that? It's a very different look. When you look at that, you start to say, well, geez, how come I mistook that? It seems kind of obvious. Well, it's not always so easy when they're walking around in the mud. But anyway, they both have down-curved bills slightly. So here, right there, and right here. But this is a good example. This is a lot of white, and this has some darkness. Yeah. Here's a Donlan, and this is a Donlan and red knot. This is a tough one too. A lot of people mistake these. The red knot is bigger, the Donlan's smaller. The red knot's bill is about the length of the head. The Donlan, as we know, is 1.5 times the length of the head. There's a little bit of yellowish on the legs here. These are black legs, very thin black legs. So this is a bigger bird, and it has a lot of marking along the edge. Here's an example that's a little more difficult. There is a Donlan, at least, as our marker bird maybe. Right here, we can see that and say, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure that's, but what's this bird here? It's difficult because it's looking straight at us. So we can't really see the shape of the bill. But the body is very big, and there's a lot of markings along the edge, and it's very silvery. So this is probably a red knot here, and the rest are Donlans. It is a red knot. And now we're going to go to color.
Color. It's interesting. Most birders start and end with color. I mean, that's, and that was a true story about, it has black wings, or what is this bird? Okay, well, we're going to take color a little further. We're going to look at color, and we're going to teach you to become a better birder. Good birders know feather topography. They don't just say, oh, there was yellow on it somewhere on the side. They say the lesser coverts had yellow on them. So you're going to learn some fancy terms. It's going to impress your friends and help you be a better birder. We have a volunteer painted bunting here. One of the, I call it the Monet bird, most colorful. So this is called feather topography, the correct names for feather areas. This is called upper tail coverts. These feathers cover the base of the tail. That's the back. Underneath, these are called the undertail coverts, beneath the tail. Now, the wings are really interesting on birds. These area of feathers here cover these feathers. And these are called the lesser covert feathers, medium covert feathers, and greater coverts. This is really important in birding. These are the primary feathers, these are the secondary feathers. Different birds, different groups of birds have different numbers of primaries. Most of the songbirds have somewhere between, about roughly 11, 12 primaries. These are the secondary feathers right here, and these are the tertials. That's another term you're going to hear birders throw around a lot, tertials. The cool thing is, okay, where are those feathers? This is what you see, right? I'll show you how it goes. Let's see what we can see. Undertail coverts, okay, that's visible. Upper tail coverts, we can deal with that, back. These are the side, the head, etc., eye ring. Look at the primaries and the secondary feathers. It folds a little bit like a fan, the wings. These long feathers are the primaries, and they're stacked like this, and they're sort of graduated. The secondaries are folded sort of more neatly and more together, so you don't see a graduation there. These are the tertial feathers. And look at the wing. These are the covert feathers. We have lesser, median, and greater coverts. Cool stuff. Remember, years and years and years and years ago when I learned that stuff, I thought, wow, this is so neat. Now I know really where those feathers are and what to call them. Well, some color on birds is obvious. Some birds are even named for the colors, such as this black-throated green warbler. Isn't that a beautiful little warbler? Well, duh, black throat, but huge amounts of black on it, and yellow on the head, an eye line right there. That's an easy one. Other birds, well, where's the color of this? In this posture, you're not seeing much color at all on this bird. Well, what can we tell? Well, there's a little faint hint of yellow right there. A lot of streaking, very dull bird, nothing given us on the primaries. Look at the coverts, though. Lesser coverts, excuse me, median coverts and greater coverts. What are we seeing here? A wing bar. Now, how many times as birders you say, oh, it's got wing bars? Do you know what those wing bars are? They're the tips of the median coverts and the greater coverts. That's cool stuff. This is actually a first fall female, a first winter female yellow-rumped warbler. Well, lucky for yellow-rumped warblers and for us, there is a spot on this bird where there's a lot of color on the rump, on the upper tail coverts. So this is a very common warbler, one of the most common warblers you're going to see in Sanibel, yellow-rumped warblers in winter plumage. This is the group we can name the sandwich warblers. Why is that? Well, this one has butter on its butt. Got another one for you. Palm warbler, the second most abundant warbler in winter in Sanibel, who sat in mustard. These are called what are these feathers called? Undertail coverts, very good. So when you look at the palm warbler, look at the undertail coverts, if you can see them. They're bright yellow, and another thing that the palm warbler does is it flicks its tail up and down, right? It's sat in mustard, it's trying to get the mustard off, so it belongs to the sandwich warbler group, a mustard sandwich. This is what it looks like when you can't see the undertail. That's pretty cool. You see these birds hopping around dull, a little bit of color on the forehead here, hardly wing bars. You can sort of see where the yellow is underneath, and actually the upper tail coverts on this bird has a little bit of a hint of a yellow, but it's kind of duller yellow. One of my favorite warblers, magnolia warbler. I call this the everything warbler because it has no lack of color all over it. So where's the color here? Well, we got a little bit of an eye crescent, an eyebrow, a yellow throat, black on the lower throat, all kinds of heavy streaking on the flanks. white undertail coverts. The back on this bird is actually dark black. In the Stokes Guide, we have complete photos of all the different warblers in all their different ages and at all their different plumages. And actually, you can sometimes tell a first-year male magnolia warbler because there's actually streaking, not solid black there. And look at the wings, primaries and secondaries and tertials, a little bit edged with white. Look at the wing bars and the coverts, lesser coverts, median coverts, white. Look at the greater coverts on this bird. They're all decked out, white at the edges here and black there, and then bright white the whole covert feather. And another cool tip of this bird, if you saw nothing but the undertail on this and you saw white undertail coverts, white base of the tail, black tip like it was dipped in ink, that would get you to magnolia warbler, believe it or not. Who's this? Anybody recognize this bird? This is Ding 2. So you know there's a study going on of the reddish egrets in Ding Darling, funded partially by the Refuge, done by Avian Research and Conservation Institute, and they put satellite trackers on these birds. There's the satellite tracker. And this one we know because they banded it. It's banded on the right. We know it's a male, Ding 2. And look at the feathers. This particular egret has white on the feathers. White here on these feathers, probably the primaries and the tertials, and a little bit on the wing covert feathers right there. So look for this bird. I don't have a photo here, but I'll fold it up, but a lot of times you can see this bird, and what stands out from a distance is these big white feathers right there. You can see them from a distance. Color changes with age in birds. Not all birds, but often it does. So roseate spoonbills, a big star out there, Ding Darling, and people have no idea. They often think that the different colors indicate sex in roseate spoonbills, and that's not true. You can't tell the sex, male from female, but you can tell the age. So the age of this bird, this is a young bird. It takes 3 years for a roseate to attain its adult colors. This is very pale, very cute feathered head, pale pink cotton candy, colored wings. This is second year. Look at this. What have we here? Well, we're getting a little less feathers, a little greenish, a little dark feathers coming in here, like a headband, a little yellow there, slightly darker pink, a little bit of orange there, and look at these are the wing, what are these called? Covert feathers. Very good. And here's the adult, flashy, everything going on, huh? Bare feathers, green head, dark line there, a little bit yellow there, and look at the brightness of the pink and the bright carmine color of the covert feathers. And then wildly, here comes Benjamin Moore, right? Or Sherman Williams. What do they do? Bright orange. What's that all about? Very cool. Cool stuff. Orange tails in the adults. Okay, the second part of bird behavior that you're going to get better at to become better birders is bird behavior is highly critical and essential to your understanding that better. I think it's the one area of birding that people get very confused about. People basically like to anthropomorphize. They think that birds are little people with feathers. That's not true. So I want to sort of give you an overview of what really drives birds' lives. Survival and reproduction. The first thing you have to do as a bird, if you were birds, you have to survive. So what's going to be your strategy? How are you going to survive? Well, flocking is a survival strategy. There's safety in flocks. Not only are there more eyes to look for food, but most importantly, if you're in a flock and something happens to scare you, you better be sure your head, this is a tip, if you ever come back in another life as a bird, head for the middle of the flock. Because guess what happens? Who is the peregrine going to pick off? Not the dense middle, the ones at the edge. And this accounts for a lot of the strategy behind flocking behavior in birds. I took that flyby by the lighthouse, and this peregrine had just grabbed a tern. Migration. Some birds live in the same place all year round, like chickadees. Many, many birds, including many of the ones you see at the refuge, are migrants. They're in one place for the winter, then they have to migrate. Red knot, long-distance migrant, one of the champions, 9,000 miles. Are you kidding me? From the tip of South America to the high Arctic. That is indeed a champion migrant. Some of the population of knots does stay in Florida in the winter, but most of them, a lot of them migrate very, very far. Okay, you're a bird. Here's the beach. What's that all about? How are you going to live on this? You're a beach bird. Uh-oh. What are you going to do? Well, let's see. Either you're going to look like a beach umbrella, or you're going to hide. How many birds? There are birds in there. Wow. Next time you're at the beach, try to find them. These are the snowy plovers. Look at how many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. They're amazing. And they're masters of camouflage. This one's particularly good. It's fashioned a little tank out of driftwood, and it's hiding behind a dirty sock. No one's going to see it. Sleeping. Just getting your basic needs met. Those white pelicans surviving, sleeping. Make sure, but always keep one eye open, or if you're in a group, somebody keeps one eye open, just in case. And then the car wash. Feathers get dirty. Feathers are highly important. You only have one coat a year in many cases. So you go to the car wash, and then what happens after the car wash? You take it, you leave it off at your keys with the guy, and they go in your car and they do detailing. This is critical. This is preening. Think about all the birds you see bathing and preening. Preening is essential to birds' feathers. Did you ever take, you've seen a feather as a kid or adult, or you pick one up, or it comes out of, I don't know, somehow you have a feather. And there's a little chink in the feather, there's a split in the feather, and you run your fingers up the feather, and it closes the split. Did you ever have that happen when you're playing with a feather? Well, that's what birds are doing. They have special structures often on their beak to comb the feathers. And the feathers, the way a feather is made, it has little interlocking hooks called barbules, and those little hooks hook together. So when they preen, it zip-locks the feathers to make sure they're all together and all strong, because those feathers are all important for insulation, for flight. This is really interesting. This is called sunbathing. Has anyone ever seen a bird do something really weird where they lie on the ground, they tilt their head to the side, and they open their feathers? Look for it in birds. Some of them do this standing up. They open their wings. This is called sunbathing. And the function of sunbathing is multifold in birds. Sometimes it's to produce vitamin D, but often, this is a pileated in my Sanibel backyard, spreading its wings. I recognize this, and I took the photo because I recognize it as sunbathing. It actually makes the little parasites in the feathers way too hot. So they come out of the feathers, and then the bird can preen out the little parasites that are doing damage to the feathers. Sunbathing birds. Feeding. So the big thing you're seeing in many, many, many of the birds down here is survival strategies of maintenance, maintaining themselves, keeping their own selves in good shape. Feeding behavior. Don't you love the way the osprey carry the fish head first? It's just fabulous. And then, of course, we have all the feeding behavior we see out in the refuge all the time. The reddish egrets. This is another satellite. You can't see it too well on this bird. This is called Donlan. This was recently tagged. And this is the champion of all the different kinds of unusual feeding behavior. Many herons do many kinds of feeding behaviors. The reddish is not the only one that spread the wings, but this is the most dramatic one that we see in the refuge. And why they spread the wings, this is called the white morph of the reddish egret, and this bird is in, look at the color. Is that exotic and incredible? This is sort of breeding color right there. Anyway, they spread their wings maybe to draw the little fish into shade, or scare them, or shade the water so they can see better, a variety of things, and bam! Comes up with important little fish. Reddish egrets are actually somewhat declining. That's why they're being studied. There's only about 350 pairs in Florida. They need special habitat and conditions for feeding. That's why sometimes birds have trouble. They need clear, clean, shallow water with a firm bottom. And have you ever gone to Ding and seen feeding frenzies in a side ditch? Who's seen that? You come across and people are like, oh my goodness, look at all those birds. One guy said, they're all fighting. Well, they're not all fighting. They're drawn there because there's a concentration of fish. Conditions elsewhere may not be good. and they're doing special behavior. The snowies look like ballerinas. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, snowies flap their wings, they go across the water, and they actually are dragging those feet. And what are they doing when they drag the feet? They're dipping their head in and getting fish out of the water. I have images that show them with a fish in the bill. So the foot dragging could either be that yellow, scaring and making the fish dart out, and or a slow down mechanism. They have to slow enough going across the water so they can dip their heads down and catch the fish. And here is my wonderful husband to shape you up. Just wait.
Great. So the other side of bird behavior, what Lillian was talking about, you might call maintenance behavior, how the bird maintains itself in its life and in the environment. What I'm going to tell you about a little bit is social behavior. And one of the big things, this is birds interacting with each other. And we'll go over the life history of a breeding bird as well. But one of the main things that people make mistakes on and don't get as much information as they could is they mistake or don't make the distinction between facts versus assumptions. So an assumption is an idea about motive that you put on a set of facts. So you might see something happen and then you in fact make decisions about it and saying, oh, I think the bird was doing this and this and this and that's why it did that. We don't often know, rarely do we know those motives behind the birds. But we can describe what we see them do. So it's a very, it's like the old Jack Webb in Dragnet. I don't know if any of you are old enough as old as me to know that. And he used to get his little pad of paper and say, just facts, ma'am, just facts. And that was a consummate behavior watcher. So he was really good at it. A good example of people, here's a little example. Someone looked at this out on Dig Dog and said, oh, the parents are guarding the babies while they're sleeping. There's all kinds of problems. This is all just assumptions. This has nothing to do with facts. What are the facts? Well, the facts are that these birds just look smaller. They're not smaller. They're the exact same size as the others. Another assumption they make is that in fact baby birds are smaller than the adults, whereas in fact almost all baby birds when they get out of the nest are the same size as the adults. So you can't do it by size. Another thing is they assume these were the adults and then they assume they are guarding. They're not guarding either. So look, they're preening and doing all kinds of things. So this is a basic thing is when you observe bird behavior, social behavior, or any kind of bird behavior, try to record what you see and not why it's happening. When you do record the what, you can endlessly pull out assumptions from it. Forever. Everybody can say, well, I think it was this, and so I thought it was that. But if you record the assumption, it's dead. It's dead in the water. There's no more information you can get out of that. You will be a better bird if you don't call all birds he. This is probably the easiest thing we've asked you to do today. Although it seems the hardest for people to get into their heads. Everybody calls every animal, just about every animal, he. It's a disservice to the animals. Can you imagine all the female birds out there and they're standing and we're saying, oh look, there he is, he's coming right over here. And you're saying, no, I'm female. So you're losing information. Sometimes you can tell male from female, and when you do, we say, don't say it's male or female until proven guilty. It is a great word. It, just say it. It came over here. Look, it's over there. Look, it's building a nest. All of those things until you know. When you know, then it becomes even more interesting. Chickadees, you can't tell them, male from female, but you can by sight, but you can by behavior. The male, and as in most of our small birds, is the only one that sings. If you see a chickadee or hear it say, that's a male chickadee. Isn't that cool? It's a male chickadee. You can know that from studies that they've done. So this is something we hope you can do. A little brief history, sort of a natural history of how birds change and go through breeding. This will help you understand sort of what you see, especially starting now. In the very beginning of breeding, birds may change colors on them or grow certain feathers. This is Anhinga. It's grown special feathers on the neck. Both the male and female grow these. Then it gets a wonderful green around the eye and a turquoise right ring around the eye. These colors are not there all year. They just start now. And if you look closely, you get to see those. They may start to sing. This is something we hear now. The males, here is a male cardinal. Males sing. One of the interesting things about males and females is the male sings, but the female also sings. This is one of our few birds, about 5% of our small birds, where the female and the male sing, and they often do duetting. So one sings the song, the other sings the same song, and it sounds a little like this. We need a little more water. So that's done between a male and a male, or a female and a female. It's aggression. If it's done between a male and a female, it's true love. I love that part of the talk. Yeah. So another thing that you start to see in courtship and territorial behavior, those are the first types of behavior that birds will be doing. Males come, they try to get a territory, they protect it from other males. They also try to get a female at that point. And this is a good example of a flicker. Often they do what are called visual displays. What the sounds that they make are called auditory displays, and these are visual displays. It is part of the bird's language, and every bird has a set of visual and auditory displays that are fixed for that bird, and often are different for the sexes, and is a part of their vocabulary. It is their language, and they do have language. It's not all like ours, but they do have language. So this is a flicker beginning to do what's called a head-up display, and then as part of this display, that's a dominance display. It also swung down on the perch and spread those wonderful green feathers, and actually that was at another male who was down here. Those feathers were spread right at its head, saying, okay, this is it, you're out. Here's an example of a heron doing a display at a nest site. And you can see that this is where the plumes come in, and they grew, they're growing right now. As you look on the birds, you begin to see them. And they do these incredible things where they can control how those feathers all spread out. Isn't that beautiful? And this is a courtship and an aggression display, again, a territorial display. If it's between neighboring birds, then it's probably aggressive. If it's between male and female, then it's usually courtship. Another thing that happens is you start to see male and female sitting together or being closer. This is a big ferocious bird. They don't often get near other eagles. But when they do, it's almost always a good sign that some kind of courtship is going on and these birds are habituated. During courtship, birds often synchronize their behavior. So they start to do things at the same time. This is the female on the left. She's substantially bigger than the male. This is true in most raptors. And there's the male on the right. Look, they're both doing that. And then look at that. Isn't that fabulous? Lillian got these beautiful pictures. This was in our backyard. Actually, wasn't it? Yeah, this is in our backyard. We have a tree in our backyard at the dunes. And the eagles sit there all the time. After courtship and the territory formation comes nest building. This is an eagle carrying a nest twig. Sometimes these, like in eagles, these are broken off in flight. They go flying down in a twig and grab onto it and break it off. And either get it to break off or give up and then flap up and come around again. Here's a pileated woodpecker. They go inside the hole, they chisel a lot, and then they come out and throw all of the chips. All of the chips ahoy. And this is a male doing this. The male has red down here. You can see a slight little bit of red. But this is a funny thing to see. You can see it yourself. Because there's so many pileated woodpeckers. This must be the pileated capital of the world. Mourning doves. This is an interesting one. This is a male mourning dove. It has more iridescence on the back of the head, and it's a little more rosy than the female. He goes and he tries out all these different twigs. And then when he gets one he likes, he walks over to the female who's at the nest site, walks on her back, and presents the twig over her shoulder. She gets it, takes it away from him, he flies off, and she rearranges the furniture. So it all works very well. Then there's mating. After the nest building comes mating, and mating occurs during egg laying, around that time. So it either has to start before it, it definitely goes through all of the egg laying period. Mating in birds is not what you think. It's not like in humans. It's much simpler in some ways and much harder in other ways. They have a little opening called a cloaca, and it's the only opening they have, both for elimination and for as a sexual opening. And for both of them, that's all they have, that little opening. What they do is the female sits on a perch. This is the female here. She grabs on hard. She lifts her tail up. The male steps on the back, lands on the back of the female, and bends his tail down, and they just rub rears. So when you think, well, I think I saw them mating in air, that's hard to do with the air. So no birds, in fact, mate in the air. They all do it on pretty sturdy perches. And for the eagles, it has to be a very sturdy perch. And here they are again. This is X-rated. PG is just pretty good. X-rated is excellent. Right? And here, after that, the female lays the eggs. This is the female at the nest. Then they obviously incubate them. They take breaks. Here's the female. You can see she's in air. Those are her feet. This is the male coming to spell her. She's out for a Starbucks break, and no product placement there. Then they hatch, and then the parents are involved with feeding them, so then you start to see adults come to the nest with food. And they often have to modify it in some way so the babies can eat it, especially on big birds of prey like this. So you'll see a female and a male reaching down, twisting their head, coming up, reaching over and placing something in the mouth of the little baby. Even if you don't see the baby, you can see the behavior of the female doing that. Ospreys, obviously, and eagles, we get a chance to see this all the time here on Sanibel. The young, look at the young. They're as big as the adult. They're about to fledge, so baby birds are not tiny. They're big. Here's robins, just about as big as the adults. They're just about, this is the nestling phase, so they're in the nest. The next phase is called the fledgling phase, and that's when they're out of the nest, like this. And here is a baby bluebird being fed by an adult. We call this college age, out of the nest but still dependent on the parents. A dreaded age for all of us. And then after that, they're on their own, and this is the hardest time for young birds. This is a young robin trying to be an adult. They have to learn how to feed. They have to learn all the dangers. They're on their own at this time. This is the toughest time for them to get through in their lives, and there's a lot of mortality at this stage.
We have two more sections to our talk. This one is called Bird Attracting in the Wild and at Home. You can be a better birder if you know how to attract birds and provide for their needs. In the wild, well, here we are on the Sanctuary Island. You ever see this when you enter Sanibel? Welcome to our Sanctuary Island. Do enjoy, don't destroy. Protect it and they will come, and Sanibel has done a superb job. And so has Ding Darling, the crown jewel of the National Wildlife System, with over 5,000 acres preserved, 1 million visitors, probably more this year. More than ever, people are flocking to Sanibel. Home to so many, many thousands and thousands of birds that call it home, that find a survival here in the winter, in the protected area. Beautiful birds, like this male hooded merganser. Did you also know on our Sanctuary Island, there's another place that birds depend on? It's the Lighthouse Park. And what happens there is magic. The last week of March and through April, all the migrants come, and the birders come to the Lighthouse Park. So what happens is, people from all over the world come here. You go to the Lighthouse Park in the end of March, and you meet people from the UK. How many people have seen migration at the Lighthouse Park in spring here? It's unbelievable. Just think about it. All those birds coming from Central and South America, billions of birds, have to get back to North America, have to get back to the Arctic where the majority of them breed. They have to cross the Gulf of Mexico, a perilous journey. If they cross and they have a headwind, they need to land. Where do they see? Think of being a bird. You're flying across the Gulf. Dawn comes. You're hungry, you're tired, you need landfall. Where is it? Just like the lighthouse is a beacon. Well, the park is full of greenery and resources for hungry birds. And the eye candy parade of the neotropical migrants that you can see at the Lighthouse Park here on Sanibel in spring is just astounding. Summer tanagers, scarlet tanagers, the ground littered with blue, royal blue, beautiful indigo. These were all taken at the lighthouse, these photos. Baltimore orioles, orchard orioles, rose-breasted grosbeaks, that one's on the cover of our Eastern Field Guide. If you want to know the call of this bird, you know when you squeak your sneaker on the gym floor? That's what the call of this bird sounds like. Fancy birds like cave swallows, a rare swallow that showed up last spring this was taken. And then the holy grail of the warblers, Swainson's warblers. If you're into, counting birds and life birds and we want to see rare birds, we had 4 of them this spring at the lighthouse at the same time in Lighthouse Park. Why are they there? It's a green oasis. There's fresh water, and most importantly, because we're on the sanctuary island, we don't cut native vegetation, so there's ample fruits in all the fig trees. So all these birds, you can be standing there and whiz, see a hummingbird or see a neotrop, fly by your head, land in a tree, and start chowing down on berries, and you just want to cheer and say, yay, you made it across the Gulf. Glad you're here for a pit stop, and good luck on the rest of your breeding. And hooded warblers, all the southern warblers. We don't get to see these in New Hampshire, where I'm from. Look at that. And lots of warbler eye candy. Northern parrotlets, and Blackburnian warblers, one of my favorites. And bay-breasted warblers, a lot of these male birds in their finery of their breeding colors. Cape May warblers. And what about at home? That's in the wild. What about at home? What can you do? Well, here on Sanibel, Donna and I have a little 1/4-acre house that we call Cocoa Plum, and we've attracted 112 species that have been in our backyard through all kinds of native plantings. And, by the way, which is the real bird here? This is a sculpture I bought for Donna, a Christmas present here in the gift shop. And look who's here, the real bird. Hunting for lizards, the great egret. Red-bellied woodpeckers. I just put up a new birdhouse a couple of days ago, and this morning we had a red-belly hanging around. Go to SCCF, get birdhouses. How many people own property here on Sanibel? How many of you have birdhouses on your property? Oh, we got a lot of work to do. Not just one. Go to SCCF. Different birds need different size houses and different size home. Put up the houses. Here's our backyard. I have a butterfly garden. I have monarch butterflies growing here. And look at those 2 boxes. Well, looky, what's here? And this is true, as of like 2 days ago, we looked in that back box. Screech owls. I have 2 screech owls in our backyard. They raise babies there. The babies sit on our railing, and it's just absolutely precious. Big tip here. You want to have less, everybody's like, the pond rats are a big problem this year. There's too much water. They're coming up to our houses. Well, get a screech owl. They eat pond rats. Forget about poisoning them. Do a screech owl. Rat control. Love them. New Hampshire. That's where Donna and I live the rest of the year. There we are, southwest New Hampshire, inland site. This is our 48-acre property farm called Bobbling Farm. 48 acres, 207 species attracted here. That's a pretty darn good list for inland New Hampshire. Are you kidding me? A good chunk is under conservation easement. That means it can't be developed. That's the view from my deck. So you can see that we front on a dammed up section of a river, Powder Mill Pond, Project Mountain, big fields here, big field there. Named for the bobolinks that nest in our fields. Nestled at the base of Mount Monadnock, for those of you that know New England, there's our house right there. Fancy gardens around the house, water, diversity of habitat is the key. Here are our beautiful gardens. I'm a garden, some of you don't know this, I'm a garden designer. We have fabulous gardens. They've been featured in national magazines, and they've been on national garden tours. And it's not just pretty flowers or good design. It's also for the birds. All of you own property, most of you I'm sure have yards. Think about putting plants for the birds. So at our house, what we do is we have ruby-throated hummingbird, salvia, red tubular flowers, salvia lady in red, tons of that. One of my favorites. We plant purple coneflower and leave the seed heads up. So Mr. Goldfinch, Daddy, can feed baby goldfinch fledgling with the seed heads. So we let the seed heads mature, we don't cut them down in the winter, and the finches feast. What else do we have? Ooh, fancy birds. Pine grosbeak, very cool, more northern birds. We plant crab apples that fruit at different times and ripen at different times. And in late fall, we get the pine grosbeaks, very awesome. Build it and they will come. So what do our birdhouses up there attract? Baby saw-whet owls. That's bragging rights. Aren't they the cutest things? They poked their heads out during the New Hampshire Birdathon when all these teams came to our yard. It was too precious for words. Yellow warblers nest in the marshes. And here's Don and our corgis. Adorable butts. That's you gotta love corgi butts. That's Abby and that's Phoebe. And look at the fields. Look at the beautiful field with dragonflies and butterflies and crickets and critters. But it comes with maintenance. That camo is treated so it repels deer ticks, and my hubby is out there getting rid of what we do on set about invasive alien plants. He's getting rid of buckthorn. And then moose come to our fields. I think that one was eyeing the birdhouse as a scratching post. Tree swallows. You see the swarms of tree swallows here? Well, that's well and good, and they're feasting on the wax myrtle and bayberries. But when they go up north, they need holes to nest in, and those are hard to come by. We have 15 nesting pairs of tree swallows, so up north, put up tree swallow boxes. Our fields attract nesting bitters. This is a baby bitter. And I took this photo from a great distance. I retreated, and what did it do? Look, it's pointing upward, just like the bitterness that we see there are the adults. It was so cute, like camo. Okay, bobolings, the name of the game. Bobolings are grassland species. Grassland species are in trouble because there's loss of habitat and everyone cuts the fields at the wrong time. Our bobolings are safe. They're safe from cutting of babies in the nest. So unusual farming practices, the farmers come in, they cut the hay in June, just when there are nestlings in the bobolink nest. Bye-bye bobolings, huh? That's a bad story. Well, our farmer, Stevie Platt, love him. Cigar smoking, big barbed wire tattoos, and he loves birds. So we have a deal. He cuts our fields, but not until the end of August. He planted the fields with species of grasses that he feels still can feed and nourish his dairy cows. It's smooth brome and some other types of grasses. Okay, fields are cut, hay is baled. What happens now? Other birds are attracted, like northern harriers that hunt for mice and insects in the grass. And then a special treat comes at the end of August when other birds are attracted to the field. So there we are, Don and Guy, head of one of the top people at New Hampshire Audubon, head of a big, on the board of Hawk Migration Association of North America, and New Hampshire Young Birders head. Our friends in New Hampshire on our deck, looking for nighthawk migration at Bobolink Farm. 1,200 nighthawks in one day. We hold a New Hampshire record. What are they after? Those fields that provided nesting for bobolinks now provide places where ant swarms can come up, and there's lots of flying dragonflies. That's what nighthawks feed on, flying insects. So multi-purpose fields. Okay, the last section, caring and sharing. How can you be a better birder by caring and sharing? This is the famous boardwalk at McGee Marsh in Ohio, warbler capital of the world in May. You see warblers? These people care about it, and the area is protected. Well, let's see. Do people care when they walk on the beaches about the birds? I don't know. This guy's like a well-equipped birder. He's got his binos, he's got a slurpee, he's got a shell. It looks like he's going to stub his toe on the birds, though. What's going on? I have often gone up to people on the beach and said, you know, I know the birds are here and we share the beach, but could you please walk around the birds, or at least think about it, because they need to rest. Think about resting and feeding and energy and migration. It's important to the birds, and it's important that we keep educating people over and over again. You are all birding ambassadors. As better birders, you're going to understand this better, and you're going to communicate it to other people, because everyone needs to be educated over and over. Ethics, ABA Code of Ethics. We want to take care of the birds. We don't want to disturb birds. Long telephoto lenses are a good thing. Stay away from the birds. Don't get in their face to take their photos. There's a real flamingo, just when you thought you had everybody understanding that these are rosy as spoonbills out there. Oh dear. This year it's just throw your hands up. What is a little flamingo? I'll tell you a story, actually. Before this bird showed up, Don and I were on the refuge. A couple came up to us and said, I saw a flamingo. This is a ding. I said, really? They said, yeah. It flew over, and the description was really good for a flamingo. So keep your eyes open. This bird could show up at ding. It's at Bunch Beach nearby here. What's happening? It's harassed by people trying to get in its face with cell phones and not understanding that when you make it fly, that takes away from the time it can eat. Too much eagerness, too much readiness to see it, too much ready to love it to death in photos. So keep your distance, please. The news press had a big article, stay away from the flamingo. Please respect the flamingo. It's not there as much anymore. Don't play recordings of birdsong in National Wildlife Refuges to get the birds to come out. It's not legal. Don't do it, period. Yes, this is a mangrove cuckoo taken in Ding Growling by Rose. That was right after Hurricane Charlie, you know, when the trees were more bare. Everybody wants to see a mangrove cuckoo. Don't play tapes, please. It's not useful to the birds. Okay. I'm not going to say a whole lot about cameras, but if you want to talk to me about cameras later, I'll talk cameras all day. I am holding in my hands the range of cameras. How many people here have cameras? Okay. On my left, that's about $8,000 worth of camera equipment. The Canon 1DX with a telephoto lens. In my right is a little tiny point and shoot. It costs about $400. It's called the Canon SX50. How many people have that camera? Probably, and probably some of you might have been influenced by me. You did really, I'm sorry. I'm the queen of the SX50. I sort of backed into it a couple of years ago when it came out. 100,000 people have read my blog post. Every day from all over the world, I get 5 people writing, I'm in Australia, and we're going to see some birds, and I read your blog post, and can you send me your 5 pages of tips that you advertise on your blog post? Later, if you want my 5 pages of extra tips, come talk to me, give me your email, I'll send them to you. It's unbelievable. What do I love about that camera? Well, it allows you to stay far away from the bird and powerful. Look at that baby. You could probably get it for, I don't know, in the $300 range now. Okay, sharing and caring. Join social media in which we all share and learn about birds. This is called the Southwest Florida Bird Alert, started in Fort Myers by Tammy and Dave McQuaid. How many people are on this Facebook page? Good. How many people are on Facebook? Join this. If you're not on Facebook, join Facebook. It won't fight you. It's really safe. Don't sweat it. Oh my God, Facebook, no, cool it. This is a really cool group. We talk to one another. We share photos. We tell you about things. We tell you to stay away from the flamingo. We tell you where all the good birds are. We have discussions on identification. It's a really neat thing. It's a closed group. Go on Facebook. Just apply. They'll let you in. Tell Tammy Lillian sent you. Okay, closed group. Join. Look it. Awesome. Do it. Climate change is the biggest threat to the world, to people, to birds. It's real. You don't believe in climate change, you don't believe in science, somebody just once said. Take it seriously. It's disrupting birds' lives. It's going to disrupt our lives. Weird birds are showing up in weird places. The planet is warming oddly in some places and sending extreme weather in other places. These are razorbills that showed up. Oh, northern bird. Shouldn't be here in winter. They all came down. They couldn't find food up north. The water was too warm. They came to Florida. What happened? The prey species of fish are the wrong things for them to eat. A lot of them died. That was an example of disruption. You know, we talk about us being a sanctuary island. We are an island, but we're not an island. We're surrounded by a planet and by the waters of the Caloosahatchee. If you're not outraged about what's going on and what's coming down the Caloosahatchee because of the South Florida Water Management District and all the pollution being dumped and the fertilizers by the farmers into Lake O and it being flooded down here and flooding our waters and creating havoc, have you looked at the color of the water? Have you gone to the beaches? It's a mess. My grandchildren are coming next week. They love to go to the beach. I'm not sure that's going to be possible. Pay attention to the policies of the people you're going to elect. Know what they are. This is a democracy. Vote. Make your voices heard. Please. Okay. And the very last, children. They're our future. What will they inherit? That's our grandson, Theo. Me on the right and Donna left, and that's at the Pond Apple Ponds. He loved it. There he is. There are books written on, if you want to have future conservationists, this is what needs to happen. They need to be immersed in nature and play and be by themselves and soak it up and absorb it. And that's exactly what Theo is doing. We couldn't get him away from there. He said, no, I think I'll come eat lunch later. He's just looking and absorbing, getting in his paws. He will be a conservationist when he's older. At the Lighthouse Park last year, cool young birds loved it. I was down on the ground with them trying to photograph the Swainson's warblers. Care and share with children. Don, sharing his scope. Do you lower your scope? Do you show kids? Please do. And ding, look at the high school photography contest, Theodore Cross. I was lucky to be a judge last year, get kids involved in photography and loving birds. The New Hampshire Young Birders, most states have a New Hampshire Young Birders group. They're visiting Bobolink Farm. Don and I provide them with field guides and lots of fun. Great group of people, great dedicated parents. So, to summarize, you're all going to leave here being better birders. You're going to know how to identify birds better through shape, color, and size. That was pretty good for me. And I'm not going to tell you what this is. You're going to have to go get the big red Stokes guide to find out. By the way, if this heron showed up here, mega rarity.
Right.
Okay? Behavior. So you're all going to take the pledge. You're going to understand just the facts, ma'am. And what are we going to do when we see a bird that we don't know the sex of? What are we going to call it? Okay, I want you all to everybody raise your hand. Okay, this is the pledge. I'm serious. Raise your hand. I promise for the next week